So welcome everybody to this latest video on 162 Maths, and in this video we're going over a quick topic test with a collection of some GCSE exam style questions on statistical measures 4 at foundation level. Now a copy of the questions for you to have an attempt at before watching through this video is available for you to download by clicking on the link in the description, which I strongly recommend that you do to see how much understanding you have on this topic. Now it's worth noting before we get started working through these tests that there is no indication about which questions refer to a non-calculator or a calculator paper. So what we'll do is we'll just make sure that we're showing full working out so that if it is on a calculator paper, it's just going to be a little bit easier to work out, but also potentially worth less marks. So let's get started on question 1. So question 1 says, which is an example of continuous data, and we need to circle our answer. Now continuous data is basically data that can be any number within a given range, and that's so looking at the number of pages in a book, well that can only be whole numbers because you can't have like 1.5 pages. And the cost of a book, again, although may seem like continuous data, but can only be re-rounded to, let's say, 2 decimal places, simply because you can't have, let's say, let me just write this down so it's a bit easier to follow, you can't have 3.75 as a price of a book. So the correct answer you need to circle is the weight of a book. Question 2 then says, Tom makes school shirts. The sizes of his shirts are in years. He asked for sizes of the first 13 shirts sold one day and said, here are the list of numbers that represent this data. So for question 2a, it says what is the mode? So it's a case of which number appears the most, and the answer you should be able to spot there is 7. For the next question, it says which is the median. So what we need to do here is we need to order those 13 numbers. So if I just do 13 dashes, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 13, and then what we then want to do is just order those numbers. Now for 2 marks you will get a mark for showing that you've ordered those numbers, so it is important that you take the time. Now I like doing little dashes just so that it's easy for me to see which ones I've done to make sure I've got all the numbers. So I can see I've got 1, 6, I've got 1, 2, 3 7s, and I would typically cross, or I've got 4 7s actually, them out, but again I might be needing these numbers again, so I don't want to completely deface each of these numbers. I've got 1 9, a 10, 11, a 14 and a 15. So from this I just want to find which number appears in the middle, and that's going to be 8. And for question 2c, it says Tom needs to start making some more shirts. Would he find the mode or the median more useful when he is planning what sizes to make next? Give your reason for your answer. So for here I would say the correct answer should be the mode, and potential reasons for this, as he would have sold more, I've got a H there, of a particular size, and something along the lines of, again, it's the most common size, etc. So something along those lines, you could write mode there. Obviously you would need to give a reason for that as well. Moving on to question 3, it says here are 4 cards with numbers on. We've got 5, 5, 9, 5. Simon thinks that the mode of the cards is higher than the mean, and Claire thinks that the mean of the cards is higher than the mode. Who is correct? Give your reason for your answer. So for this, what you want to do is first of all work out both the mode and the mean. So the mode is going to be the most popular, so that's 5. So then to work out the mean, what they need to do is add up all of those numbers and divide by how many numbers there are. So that gives me 24 divided by 4, which equals 6. And so the mean is higher than the mode, and so that means that Claire is correct. So Claire is correct, as the mean is greater than the mode. So something along those lines would be absolutely fine. Moving on to question 4, it says Sam did a survey of the number of portions of fruit and vegetable people had in one day. The frequency table shows the results. How many people did Sam ask in her survey? So for this, what we need to do is basically total the frequency. So what we need to do is add up all of these numbers. So we've got 4, 14, 19, 23, 25. And the answer then is 25. Next question then says work out the median from the table. So for this, what we want to do is to work out what the middle number is going to be. So for here, we've got 25 divided by 2, which gives me 12.5. So I'm looking for the 13th number, because that is the decimal we round up. So the 13th number, what would the 13th number is? If I list out all the numbers, well, it's going to fall under 1. So that there is going to be my median value, which is 1. For C, it says calculate the mean number of fruit and veg people had that day. So if I go back to my table and let me then create an FX column. And so to create the FX values, all I need to do is multiply the number in the first column by the number in the second column and work it out. So here I've got 0 times 4, which is 0, 10, 10, 12, and 8. So adding those up, I get 30. No, I don't. I get 40 rather. And so then the mean is going to be 40 divided by 25. And if I type that into my calculator, I should have an answer of 1.6. So then moving on to question 4D, it says how many people ate more than 2 portions of fruit and vegetable that day? So how many people ate 2 or more? And so all I need to do is just add up, sorry, more than 2. It's going to be 4 plus 2, which is 6. And the key thing, it's more than 2, not just, so not including the 2. Moving on to our last question, it says the table below shows the number of minutes people had to wait for fuel at a petrol station one morning. And it says calculate the estimated estimate for the mean waiting time. So for this, what we need to do is create a few additional columns. So here we've got midpoint. Now, typically, sometimes this column would be already drawn for you, or you'd have a few blank columns, but for this, we just need to do that ourselves. Fortunately, you're not going to get any mini marks for just simply drawing the columns, but you do get marks for working out the values. So to work out the midpoint, again, it's the middle number between the upper and lower bound. And if you're not too sure what those midpoints are going to be, just simply add the upper bound with the lower bound and divide by 2. So 0 plus 2 is 2, divided by 2 is 1. So that's going to be 1. Then we've got 3, 5, 7, and 9. And the FX value is calculated by this time multiplying the second column by the midpoint value. And for this, I probably will need a calculator. So here we've got 10, 36, 23 times 5 is 115. Then 7 times 18 is 126. And 9 times 17 is 153. Then what I then need to do is to work out the total frequency and the total FX value. So if I add up that second column, I've got 10 plus 12 plus 23 plus 18 plus 17. That gives me an answer of 80. And if I add up my total FX value, I get 440. So here the estimated mean value is going to be 440 divided by 80. And if I work that out on my calculator, I get 11 over 2. And even if I didn't have a calculator, I could just write 44 over 8, which is 22 over 4, which is 11 over 2, which is 5.5. Does that seem accurate? Well, yes, because again, the most popular time was between 4 and 6, and my answer is a value between 4 and 6. So then just need to check how they want me to write the answer. Well, it is in minutes, so 5.5 or 5.5. Definitely don't write both like I've done here. I will leave it as this. You could potentially write 5 minutes and 30 seconds, but I would probably opt not to do that simply because it already says minutes, so they kind of want the answer in minutes, but just be mindful of that